Hey everyone, welcome back to the Meters YouTube channel. Happy Monday. Today I'm going to be showing you how I make the perfect medium rare steak as well as the perfect egg yolk. So I mentioned in a couple of my other videos that Daniel and we usually stick to just eating the egg yolks. Now that doesn't mean that we only eat the egg yolks. Sometimes we'll dabble into eating the whites, but it's the yolks that make us feel the best. So I had a request from one of my lovely viewers who asked if I could make a video on how I fry the perfect egg yolks. So I'm going to be showing you how I do that today. It's mid-afternoon and this is going to be a pretty short video. I'm working with very limited light here where I am. These long winters don't provide much sunlight. So while I let these steaks get to room temperature for about 10-15 minutes, I actually prefer cooking them when they're room temp. I try not to cook my steaks straight out of the fridge. I think the texture is better and the overall heat distribution when cooking just works out better. So as these get to room temperature, I'm gonna show you how I make my egg yolks. It's really not that difficult, but we'll go through it. And it's not my idea, it's Daniel's. He insisted I give him credit, so this is not my recipe, this is Daniel's. So I'll show you quickly what I'm gonna be making today. Strip loin steaks from Wild Meadows Farm. So these are small, and as you can see, they're not super fatty. They've got like a little bit of fat on the side, but that's what grass-fed steaks look like in my opinion. They don't have a whole lot of fat as opposed to grain-fed. So cows that eat grain tend to have much more fat. I prefer the grass-fed stuff, and I'll just eat my fat separately, like making crispy beef fat on the side. I might actually have some cod liver with this meal. So let me put these guys to the side, and then I'm gonna show you what we do with the egg yolks. For today, I'm gonna have 3 egg yolks, and Daniel is gonna have 3 egg yolks. The main point of this egg cracking is not to break the yolk. If you break the yolk, it's not the end of the world, but the only way these eggs come out perfect is if the yolk stays intact, perfectly round. So this is gonna be like a live demonstration. Hopefully I don't mess this one up. Okay, so make sure you have a bowl for your egg whites and the shell, and then another bowl for your yolks. I sometimes use my hands, and then sometimes I use the eggshells, but I find with my hands I could be a little bit more delicate. Sometimes if the egg yolk hits the shell, it could just break. Okay, so we got 1. Just put it in there. If you're a perfectionist like me, if an egg yolk breaks in the process, what I would do is just transfer it to another bowl and cook it separately. It doesn't deserve to be with the others. All right, we've got 2. So this is the first hurdle, getting the yolks not to break here. The second hurdle will be when you're actually frying them, and then you have to flip them. But you try your best, and regardless, it pretty much tastes the same. I always find it tricky to get these little guys out. Sometimes I find if I pull too hard, it pierces the yolk. So I'm gonna leave that part on. All right, so we're halfway there. I'm gonna have to pause this video right now because I just had an idea and I need to go get a bowl. So I got a second little bowl for Daniel's eggs so that when I put them individually in the frying pan, the two sets are separated, and when I flip them, I think it decreases the chances of all of them breaking, if that makes sense. Probably people are watching this video and are mortified at the amount of egg whites that I'm throwing out, which is normal, but I really find no use for them. I mean, I know I could make cloud bread and other types of food, but at the moment I don't have a hand blender, so maybe in the future. Okay, and the last egg. Okay, and that's it for the eggs for the first part. Okay guys, so I have separated my egg yolks from the whites. Just gonna let them chill in these two bowls. The only reason I'm using two bowls is because I'm making food for two people, for myself and for Daniel. If you're just making food for yourself, one bowl will do. I got my cast iron over there for the steaks. You can use a frying pan as well. And I'm gonna set the heat to medium. So medium on my oven looks like a 6 or 7. You want it to be pretty high heat. And then I'm gonna add beef tallow from my pickle jar. And I made this the other day, self-sufficient. So I'm gonna use that, and the yolks we're gonna do last in the same pan. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. In the same pan that I made the steaks in. So you don't need to put any more butter or tallow or lard. We're gonna take the steaks out, and anyways, I let my steaks rest for about 5 minutes. So while the steaks are resting, we can fry the egg yolk. So I'm gonna take you over to the stove. So I'm gonna put a healthy tablespoon of tallow in the cast iron, and then I'm going to take my steaks out of the packaging while this cast iron heats up. You want it to be nice and hot, like I said. When you drop your steak in there, it should sizzle. And I don't salt my steaks before I put them in the pan. I salt them during the process. So while my cast iron is heating up, I just wanted to do a little debriefing because I always find it's kind of difficult to provide instructions while I'm cooking, and I tend to forget things that I wanted to say, and then when I watch the video I'm like, shoot, I should have said that. So the number one thing that changed the game for me in terms of perfecting how to make a medium rare steak was when Daniel's dad, the chef, gave me another tip. So he said to touch the steak with my finger. So I'm always poking the steak, and you want it to feel like this part of your hand. I just realized I had steak blood on my arm. So you want it to feel like this part. If you squeeze this part of your hand, that's how your steak should feel. Kind of soft, but not too soft. It'll take a bit of practice, but you'll definitely nail it. And I always find I prefer to at least have my steaks undercooked than overcooked, because if it's too bloody, you can always throw it back in the pan. When I first started this way of eating, I really liked my steaks to be well done, and I was really grossed out by like a juicy red steak, but things have changed for me, and now I prefer medium rare. I really don't even mind a blue steak, but to each their own. I hope you guys enjoy this technique. Okay, so you could see my cast iron is ready, so I'm gonna go ahead . You know what? I'm gonna use my hands. Here we go. So you want to just let these steaks cook, and I'd say at least a minute or two. I don't usually time it because I find that each steak is different, the thickness could be different, the quality, but let's actually time it for once and see how long it takes. So it's been a little bit over a minute. I just put my little splatter screen on because it was getting wild. A true telltale sign for me that lets me know that it's time to flip the steak is when there's like a little bit of blood rising to the top from the other side. So let's have a look and see if that's happening right now. It's not happening just yet, but I am going to add some salt. Okay, so depending on the thickness of the steak, you might not always see the blood rising, but what you can do is flip it over, and if it looks like that, it's ready to flip, but I'm gonna kind of sear it on the sides a little bit. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna grab this guy. Yeah, it's looking good. I'm gonna do the same. Adding some more salt. You can start kind of touching it right now. It's not cooked on the other side, so it's not ready, but just so you get to know your steak and the texture of it, still pretty soft. So depending on your steaks, one might be ready before the other. I think this guy's ready. I'm gonna poke him. Yeah, he's definitely ready. I don't want to overcook. And they do cook a little bit more as they rest. And I'm gonna take this one out too. And there we go. Now I'm gonna remove the cast iron from the ring just because it's too hot for the eggs. I'm gonna lower the heat. Can you guys see the chaos in the kitchen? I'm gonna lower the heat, and then I'm gonna add the eggs in about 2 minutes when all of this has calmed down. So as you can see, here are the steaks. I would say I did about 2 minutes on each side, but really I don't like to put a time on it because all steaks are different. As I said, I don't know if you were able to hear me with all of the sizzling, but you just have to kind of feel it out and also get to know the color of the steak. All right, so now we're gonna move on to the eggs. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of nervous that I'm gonna mess this up. So what I do is I just kind of take the eggs and I slowly pour them in. I'm gonna do the same with Daniel's eggs. There you go. I add a little bit of salt. And then let them cook to your liking. And then after they're cooked a little bit, we're going to gently flip them. These are gonna be like little crispy pancakes on the outside, and I like to kind of leave them a little bit runny on the inside. They're gonna be so freaking delicious. As I'm cooking the yolks, I'm letting these steaks rest. You can kind of see a little bit of blood there, so that gives me hope that I cooked them medium rare, but you never know. I'm not perfect. I do mess it up sometimes. I usually cook them longer on the first side than on the second side. So you can see how the edges are starting to cook, which means that it'll be more safe for you to flip them, and you will probably not break the yolk, but sometimes the yolks decide to break by themselves, like this guy. There's nothing you could do about it. So I'm going to attempt to flip these guys with one hand as I hold the phone. Oh, okay, so one broke. That's okay. And then, oh, nice, okay. So they do break, as you can tell, but they'll still be really good this way. You can see like the crispy outside. So they're almost done. I'll probably cook them for another 15 seconds and then I'm going to plate them. Also like to add some salt here. And I love cooking them in any grease or fat that I've used to make any kind of meat. It just gives the eggs so much more flavor. Okay, it's time to plate. Okay, now let's go slice those steaks and see what they look like. This should be a medium rare steak. What do you think, Daniel?
Perfect.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I know you probably prefer a little more bloody, but today's recipe called for medium rare. Not rare. So I am pretty impressed. This is what we've got going on. This is actually our first meal of the day and it's 4 o'clock. It's been kind of a busy day here. I did have some fat though, I'm not gonna lie. Some of those fat bites that I made from the day before. But anyways, you guys, thank you again for watching and I hope everyone's staying positive during these times and fueling up on some nutrient density. We have a lot of control over what's happening. Don't think for a second that you don't have any power. Feel free to watch any of the videos on the screen, and I wish you guys a wonderful week ahead.